What's up, everybody? I'm Tim from Timber Ridge Gifts. This video is going to be all about votives. Now, a lot of people don't fool with votives all that much, whether they don't understand them or they just don't have any interest in them. But it can actually be a very useful skill to have, whether you're just wanting to try out new waxes or fragrance oils and don't want to commit to a full run of container candles. You can make yourself a nice batch of votives, get an idea of what you're working with. They can be great to give out as samples. They can actually be a pretty good money maker, especially if you get into selling them as sets for like shower gifts and wedding gifts. Definitely a great tool to have in our candle making toolbox, and I'm going to show you just how easy they are. So let's talk about the supplies we're going to need. I want to give a special shout out to CandleScience for providing all the supplies you're going to see in today's video. All the supplies you see in this video can be found on the CandleScience website. I'll leave a link in the description for you. So let's check out what we're going to need. First thing we're going to need is our votive cups. These are just the standard 2-ounce votive cups. Next, we're going to need an appropriate size wick. Today we're going to be using the LX Series 14s. If you're looking to use a different series wick, just check on the CandleScience website. They've got a great wick guide. Be able to find the perfect size wick for your votive project. Next, we're going to be using votive wick pens. We'll talk a little bit more about these here in a second. We're going to need our wax. For this one, we're going to be using Ecosoya Q230. This is a great wax for votives. We can stick with the soy-based product line. The great thing about this is there's no shrinkage with this type of wax. With a lot of your paraffins, you're going to have shrinkage. You're going to have to do a second pour, which, depending on how many of your votives you're doing, can be a little bit irritating. But with the Q230, that's not going to be an issue. And last but not least, we're going to need our candle dye and our fragrance oil. For these, we're going to be using the Hot Apple Pie from CandleScience from their new fall line. So the first thing we got to do is get our wax measured out. So we're doing 10 of the 2-ounce votive cups. We're going to use 20 ounces. We can get by with using only 20 because there's not going to be any shrinkage. We don't have to worry about a repour. Alright, so while that's melting down, we're going to go and get our votive cups set out. Now, before each use, we're just going to want to make sure they're clean on the inside. You can just take a paper towel, a little bit of rubbing alcohol, rub them out, clean out the inside. Just be careful because they do have a sharp edge on them, especially when they're new. So just be careful when you're wiping it out not to slice your fingers. Next, for our wicks. A couple different options you can use when you're wicking these. Now, we can go ahead and pour our wax like it is and then insert our wicks. Creates a little bit of extra work for you because you got to stabilize them until that wax is dry enough to hold it stable on its own. Then it can dry fully. It's kind of an unnecessary extra step when all we have to do is buy ourselves a set of wick pens. The way these work, these just sit in the votive cup. As the votive dries, it'll dry around that pen. Once it completely dries, you can take it out of the container, pop that votive pen out, and you're going to have a hole all the way through the middle of your candle. It's going to be perfect for inserting your wick later. These are not very expensive at all, and they'll save you a lot of time in the long run. Alright, so we're all set up. Let's wait for our wax to get melted down, and we'll be ready to pour. Alright, so we've got our wax all melted down. The pouring temp for Q230 is going to be about 175. It's right about where we're at, so we're going to go ahead and add our fragrance oil. Now, the Q230 can hold up to a 12% fragrance load. One thing to keep in mind, though, with our votives is they are going to be handled a little bit, so we don't want to overload them with fragrance too much, give them that oily feeling. So the ideal load for our votives is going to be about 9% or less. That's going to keep them from being oily when we touch them. And another thing to keep in mind is votives aren't meant to fill an entire room. It's a very small candle. So it's not like you're going to stick a votive in a big living room and expect to fill it with fragrance. These are more for sampling fragrances or very small rooms like a bathroom. So we're going to go ahead and load these up at about 6%. We're going to use our Hot Apple Pie fragrance oil from CandleScience. It's one of their new fall fragrances. It smells just like apple pie too. You guys are going to love this. Alright, so we're going to stir that up. We're going to give it just a second to sit. One last step before we pour. This is not a necessary step, just something I like to do. Just add a little bit of mold release to our votive cups. It's not totally necessary, just gives them that much more of a chance to come out evenly when it's time to unmold them. Alright, we're ready to pour. We're going to pour this nice and slow and deliver it just like we would any other candle. We're going to fill it all the way up to the brim, just about to the point where it's overflowing. Okay, now we're just going to let these sit for a few hours, then they'll be ready to come out. Okay, so we've let our votives sit overnight. They should be ready to unmold, add wicks to them, and turn them into candles. To do that, all we do is just simply pop them out. With the Q230, they should just pop right out. If not, you can kind of work the sides of the mold a little bit. And if you're really having a tough time with them, you can put them in the freezer. Just be careful though, you don't want to put them in the freezer to the point where they actually freeze. If they get too cold and freeze, they will actually crack apart on you, especially a candle this small. So if you're going to put them in the freezer, just leave them in there just a few minutes, just long enough to where the outside of the mold gets chilled. And they should just pop right out. We'll pop a few of them out. Alright, now to finish these up, we're just going to pop the wick pin out. We're just going to take our wick with the wick tab, slide it up through the hole in the bottom, push the metal piece in. Go ahead and trim the wick to 1/4 inch. And there you go. There's our votive. Alright, there you go, folks. Votives are actually quite simple. They can be a nice fun project, a nice complement to your candle line. They can actually be pretty good money makers too. Each of these cost about 40 cents in supplies. Depending on how you package them, you can sell them for upwards of $1, $1.50, $2 a piece. One last thing about the votives. To burn it properly, it actually goes in a votive cup. I know they look like tiny little pillar candles, but they're not actually going to burn the way pillar candles do. They actually need to be in a container. Now it's going to safely and properly burn. And a votive that size will burn for about 15 hours. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Everything you've seen in this video can be purchased through CandleScience. Again, there's a link in the description. Make sure you head to their website, check out what they have to offer. Make sure you tell them Timber Ridge Gifts sent you. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, everybody.